Hey, what's going on, everybody? BDO44 coming at you another video. All right, so we're very happy off the Rui Hachimura trade. Um, Paying attention to all things Lakers, and I just saw a little exchange that Pat Bev had with one of our media guys here in LA after the game yesterday. He was, the media guy essentially had said, "Hey, you were plus 20 something on the game, and uh, you know, you were going back and forth with Dame Lillard. And, this is a situation where you were on him, and he had a tough shooting night." And then, our guy came back and said, "Yo, Pat was saying, if he's going out there and cooking me, y'all saying, he played a great game and he cooked me if he hit some shots on me. If I'm playing great defense on him, he missed a couple shots. That's what y'all saying. How about you just say good job on Dame? How about you say that?" And I understand where he's coming from. I think it's one of those situations where this just brings me to a space where I understand how the game is perceived and viewed. You know what I mean? It's what's wrong with the game right now. They prop up the superstars and make all the points and don't provide the balance for the greatness that other players provide in other areas that don't provide statistics. That's why plus minus is something I talk about so much, because it helps us understand how well guys may be helping on the court. Now, it doesn't necessarily tell you the whole story, because sometimes a guy can have a good plus minus just getting lucky playing on the floor with somebody who's on fire. But all in all, you have to do things right. You have to not make certain mistakes. You have to not do certain things in order for your plus minus to be right. So you still have to be on the string with the rest of the team in such a way that usually means you play some really good defense. And I think that's what it was. Pat Beverly's stats didn't really tell the story. He didn't score much, didn't assist much, didn't rebound much. But on the defensive side of the ball, he shut Dame down. He shut him down. And even my very own self, I didn't articulate it that way. But it was what it was. And the numbers have shown us all Pat Beverly's career that's what he brings to the table. That he shuts people down. That people can't score on him, period. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things. So it's in how we view the game. It's in how the game is presented to us. It's in how they market the game. They ain't gonna never give the superstar focus to a guy who's playing defense in this era. In fact, I don't think they really ever do it, period, in the way that helps you understand exactly what you're looking at and why you should be impressed. No, because the star player who scores all the points didn't score points that night, so therefore he had a tough night. Hey, nah, he didn't have a tough night. He had the best defensive player he could on him. That's what it was. And the best defensive player flexed and did some superstar stuff on the other end. And so I think that's just what we need to start training ourselves to, looking at the game the right way, so that we can start giving more credence to defensive players. Some of these dudes don't score very much, but they are amazing on the other end of the floor, and it matters. And when you take away the fact that some guys are great on the offensive end and can't do nothing defensively, and they don't put as much emphasis on that, but they're doing so much because they're scoring, it's like, yo, why don't we look at them for how bad they're doing on the defensive end? Just because homie had 40 don't mean that his on the other side, he didn't just literally give up 45 points. Is there any credence to that versus the lack of this, focus on what Patrick's doing positively, or the fact that Patrick ain't scored very much, or et cetera? It's just in how we market into each other, or rather how we speak about the game, how the game's marketed to us, and ultimately how we've been trained to view this sport. Which is, and even more so now, it's getting even worse in regards to these numbers because of how they're doing this. Like, oh, the numbers are everything, 140 points a game. You really don't give any credence to the defensive end. They've taken some of the things that help defensive players be great, and they've removed and put their hands behind their back, cuffed them, basically. Defensive players like Pat Beverly are not only able to not get the credit, but they're also not able to practice the craft properly because of these rules and because of how it's catered to these offensive guys. I just think it's a misguided way of presenting the fullness of the game. And I don't think it's on purpose, to be honest with you. I just think that people perceive the game the way they do. Even those who market it to us only perceive it a certain way. Even they have been shown the game a certain way as they were young people coming up. So we got to understand that the relay of different things have just kind of kept in place, and we need to start the process of looking at things a certain way in order for guys to start getting credited that they've never gotten the credit even in the past. So that's what it is. We need to start training our eyes. Pat Beverly shutting Dame down. Dame's great on the offensive end, but he gave up 100 points on the other end and always does. And these are things we need to start training ourselves to understand. Who are the real two-way players in the league? That's why we love Anthony Davis so much, despite him not necessarily being out there for us. Because not only is he the best player on the offensive end most nights, but he's the best player on the defensive end most likely. Same with Michael Jordan. Why is he the greatest player of all time? Because he dominated both sides of the floor equally. We think about Kobe Bryant and how great he was. Defense was a big part of why we see him that way. So it's like, it goes on and on. Guys who only got, to flex on that side of the ball. I think of a guy like Dikembe Mutombo. If they zeroed in on the things that he did defensively as a superstar level talent, defensively you would rate him higher based on what he was able to do defensively throughout his career. These are the type of things, one-way players who can score all day long, like a guy like Dirk Nowitzki, who never defended anybody in his life. You ever hear him getting indicted for his defense? No, you never hear that. But a guy who never scores, like Dikembe, blocks every shot every night, ain't gonna get the same respect for what he does equally on that side. You know what I mean? So it just is what it is. It's never been marketed correctly for those guys to succeed. The NBA caters itself to the offense because they hate low-scoring games, and the defensive players don't get their shine, even though they're affecting the game in such a way that would ultimately all time rate them better than we're able to perceive them right now. And I think this was going to end up happening. And I've been telling you guys that I think over time we're going to start seeing things differently, start viewing some of these old guys differently, this era differently, etc. And they're going to start seeing how great some of these old guys were. They're going to assess them differently as they start to give more credence to the overall defensive side of the ball. And I think the game is going to change in that way just naturally. So we'll see what happens. Right now we're still in the scoring era, and they're going to continue to score. And they're going to try to score up to 180, 200 points a game before they realize this is garbage. But I think that's where it's headed. And then they're going to realize that people miss defense, and defense is going to come back around. And at that time, we'll see the fullness of all of it. All the eras, including the ones that are about to come now, and they'll start to assess things with better math, in my opinion, better ways of looking at this and seeing these players being exactly great as they're going to be seen. I think so. That's what it is, man. A guy like Patrick Beverley is gonna go down as a better player all time than he's being seen as right now, in my opinion. Especially if he's able to find himself in a winning situation before the end of his career. So. Yeah, man, shout out to PB. Obviously, a lot of what has went wrong this year is some of the lineups he's been in. I don't think he's really played that bad, if for not just being too small for the lineups he's in. It's not his fault. But all in all, he's been a good Laker for us this year. And, yeah, man, he shut Dame down. Dame came back and quoted something. He said he made fun of him, said he was some character that Bernie Mac played in Above the Rim. I don't remember the name of the character, but I definitely remember the character itself. He called him that and called him a con man. So I don't know, man. I don't think Pat Bev is a con man at all. I think he's going out there laying it on the line, sweating and pushing 48 minutes every time we throw him out there. He's playing all game long, and he never gets tired. So if you notice, Patrick Bev will never get tired. So that's another one of those things where it's like, that's definitely not what I call Patrick Beverley. A lot of things, con man, I don't see that. If anything, some of these offensive players like Dame, con men. If it would be real. If we're going to be reals, and the way they be falling on the floor, shooting jumpers, wanting calls when they get the threes, maneuvering in such a way to take advantage of the referees, that's real con man stuff. And I ain't going to say Dame is the worst at it, but I think about guys like Trae Young, con man for real. Let's just be honest. So, as far as con man, I don't know about that, man. But what I can say is Patrick Beverley lays it on the line when he plays, and if we could just put him in some lineups with some size, I think we'd really be able to understand how good he is for us. Because I can tell you right now, when he wasn't in the lineup, we were not as smart defensively. We weren't as smart, period. And that's important to mention. So, yeah, man, it is what it is, man. In the previous video, I went on here and said that I want us to chop Patrick Beverley, but that's strictly because of the contract situation. It ain't because I don't like the player or don't believe he can win. So, it is what it is. But I definitely like that exchange that he had with our Laker media guy and just reiterating how he wants to be perceived as a great defensive player. Look at me right, see me right, give me my respect. You know what I mean? Show me that you can perceive what it is that I do properly. That's what it seems like Patrick's saying to me. So we're trying, man. We weren't trained to, bro. BDL 44. I thank you all for watching.